All right, guys. So we are starting a new thing with this podcast where we do short segments, maybe up to 30 minutes, where we talk about things we like, things we want to recommend.
Just so you can get to know us a little bit better.
Right. And this week, we are talking about movies or TV shows or any type of media that we may have watched since 2020, so the past 2 years, the things that we like that we want to recommend to each other. So I think this will kind of show how much we know about each other. If the other person doesn't like what you recommended. So
yeah, although I will admit now that these might not be so much what you what I recommend you specifically, but I more or less recommend anybody. But I'm hoping you'll like and watch each of them.
Yeah, same here. So I think we're on the same boat.
Okay. So let's go ahead. I think the format that we want to probably do this is I will recommend one and then you'll recommend one.
Okay.
Okay. So I guess we'll go ahead and start this off big. The first piece of media that I would like to recommend you watch, Keishi, is Ted Lasso, which has been, as of this recording, Emmy winning. It's Emmy winning series, as well as some of the cast members have won Emmys as well. It is the story of a Division II football player that gets hired to coach a British football team or be the manager of a British football team. So
football as in FUTBOL, right?
Yes, the European, everything else besides American football. And stars Jason Sudeikis. And this actually started as a little bit in NBC. I think it was NBC when they started airing some Premier League football matches on their channel. And Jason Sudeikis loved the character so much that he started writing out and working on cast and this concept for a whole series based around that little bit. So if you've seen kind of like the Geico caveman commercials, they actually turned that into a little series.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like that, where they take this little concept and then expand it on. But it is a lot more heartwarming and very comedic. I think it hits on a little bit of British sarcastic comedy as well as kind of American deadpan comedy. And it centers it around obviously football. The cast is great. The story is well written. The first season is well paced. I think I'll talk a little bit about the second season. Second season, I think they try to incorporate a lot more into it. So I think that's where you'll start to get some more divergent opinions on the show. But the first season is definitely a solid watch, and it's only 10 episodes. It's on Apple Plus, so definitely worth a watch.
So Phil has been talking about the show for a while now.
Yes.
Because I do like watching soccer for the American fans or listeners, football for everybody else, I guess, like Phil mentioned. The concept didn't really sound really appealing to me. I don't know. I just feel like it seemed like it wasn't going to be that funny. But I guess I was mistaken now that it has won an Emmy.
You yourself are a big Premier League, like your world football fan, right? You watch
Chelsea's number one this season.
They do a lot. They do a lot to make sure that that's protected, that whole culture is protected and not really made fun of. But definitely there are moments when there are different facets that are kind of identified and highlighted, and kind of poked fun at, but not really, but in kind of like a respectful way, that this exists. And it is, even though there is an American lens to it, it doesn't take away from the kind of the common fandom that soccer players or European football fans as well as American football fans have around the game.
Okay. I mean, if you can't make fun of the stuff you love, it's not really something you love, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'll definitely check it out for sure. Now that like I said, it kind of took me this show to get an award to, actually watch it. But yeah, I'll definitely check it out for sure.
I hope you enjoy it. Also, just be prepared. It's kind of like Ned Flanders goes to Europe to coach football. So,
is he really jolly? Is that why you're comparing to Ned Flanders? I don't know. Ned Flanders is like my least favorite.
The Simpsons character.
Well, that's not true. I do like him. I like him, but I don't like him because he's also kind of annoying. I don't like happy-go-lucky, that jolly type of people. You guys have a cynic, but yeah, whatever. Does it have that regular sports TV show competitive aspect to it? Like, the team building and the team getting better over time, that type of stuff in there? Or is it simply like comedy? It doesn't really focus on that sports component.
It doesn't really focus on the sports component. It is very centered around like the team itself and like the team at practices, the team kind of how they might get into a funk while playing, or like a dip, but how certain members, like leaders of the team, bring them out and how those leaders develop within the team.
Okay. So there's a lot of character development.
There's some character development within the characters that I thought, again, from a person who's looking at for the comedy and dramatic point of perspective, that's something that I enjoyed. But I haven't brought in the big European football fan experience to it. So I do, part of the reason because I was hoping you like it, part of the reason is because I do want to get your perspective on it.
Okay. That will be on my list of things to watch this year, I guess.
Yeah, Apple TV Plus, one of the many media streaming services that I will be promoting today.
All right. So I guess moving on to mine, right?
Yes.
So most of mine are actually manga series. Some may not have been translated to English yet. I'm not sure. So please note that as I explain things.
Okay.
So which one should I go with? I'll start off with this anime series called Ourtakes, which was released earlier this year, I think sometime in the spring. And it has already got an award. I can't speak to what that award is. Sorry, but hopefully you can look it up.
Is it a Story of the Year award, or?
I don't know. It got an award and now they're making a manga out of it.
Okay.
Because it was so popular. I don't really watch too much anime anymore, but this was recommended by some of the YouTubers that I follow. Shout out to Trash Taste. I started watching them this year. And there's like 3 anime YouTubers that's been in the game for a while, but they just talk smack. And then sometimes we talk about anime. And this was something that was recommended by them. So I checked it out. So just as a kind of preset, what I do find in some of the media that I consume. So as I've covered, or maybe our listeners have discovered over season 1, I am a pretty big sci-fi fan. So usually I do kind of focus on that type of genre. But this one, Ourtakes, is more of a suspense drama. So if you like that type of stuff, this is definitely I think it will be a fan favorite, or you'll definitely enjoy this. And another thing that I do enjoy, or something that I look for in the media consume, is foreshadowing and the payoff. So all times, with these movies and TV shows, they try to build out the world too much. So by the time when it ends, there's a lot of things that are not touched upon, or they're kind of forced, and that's why a lot of core fans get annoyed by that. So that is one thing, and in order to do that, sometimes you just need to keep things short, right? So the Ourtakes is just a one-time series. I think it's like 11 episodes, and it's it's like 25 minutes each. So you can watch the whole series in a weekend, or like in a day if you wanted to. Unfortunately, it's not on major media platforms yet. But if you have Crunchyroll, I think you can watch it.
Okay. And
it should be translated in English, so that's one place where you can consume it too. So going into the plot, so it's about this taxi driver who is working out of Tokyo, living a regular life, a very mundane life. One day he meets this YouTuber, aspiring YouTuber, that gets into his car, and they start chatting, and then
this is a modern day, right?
Yeah, it's a modern day setting.
Okay.
And then they start chatting, and this aspiring YouTuber wants to post something on Twitter that gets a lot of following or replies, right? So they take a photo, and then the YouTuber posts that on the internet, and that post opens up a lot of things that happen to the main character. And there's a lot of people, because he's a taxi driver, he's exposed to a lot of people that he drives in his taxi. And throughout the story, you find out that a lot of the characters' lives are actually interconnected.
Don't get too much into the plot now.
No, I mean that's like as far as I go, but from that it leads to the final ending. And it's because it's so tight knit. Every single foreshadowing that you see throughout the story is all packed into that final ending in a very clean way, and that's what I really enjoyed.
That does sound interesting. I thanks for the recommendation. I think it's interesting how, because it's like you said, like the world building isn't so big. I think a lot of manga and anime right now, like you said, are very focused on that world building to the point where it doesn't really tie up very neatly in the end. So now that you've seen one, I'm actually really anxious to take a look.
One last thing I do want to mention about Taxi is the soundtrack. Because it is suspense, music does play a role in building up a certain scene. And this series, they hired one of my favorite Japanese hip hop rappers. So his name is Pan P. He's a rapper that I've been following for a long time, and because I do love his productions, that also kind of allowed me to really get into the world.
So is it like kind of like hip hop? Is it kind of like Samurai Champloo?
No, not like new jazz type of thing.
Oh no, but just kind of
just like modern hip hop esque, not like trap, but modern underground rap. That's it.
I'll definitely take a look. Cool. And thank you for talking a little bit about the soundtrack, because I think the next movie I'm going to talk about, it's not very like around the soundtrack, built around the soundtrack, but the soundtrack does enhance the movie a lot, and it plays around it kind of builds on what I think part of the movie is trying to do. So the next piece of media that I do want to introduce to you and recommend is a movie called Premiere, which actually also was released, I think a couple years before the pandemic. And so Premiere is by the studio called, I think the studio's name is Trigger, one of the new up and coming studios.
Oh yeah, I know Trigger.
Yeah. So this is
not the anime.
Huh?
Stupid joke. I said not the anime. Is there an anime called Trigger?
I don't know. I know there's Trigun.
Oh.
Maybe there's Trigger.
No, it's Trigun. Oh.
There might be a Trigger.
No, I don't think so.
Anyway, the movie itself is kind of like a mix of 2D, 3D animation. There are, as a heads up, there are moments where like it starts lagging, which is kind of weird because you're watching a movie and you think that you might think that your computer's lagging, but actually the movie itself is lagging. But it's a very high-paced movie that like throws you into the action. The concept is like the world itself, it's big, but it's not the centerpiece of the movie, to the point, like I said, where this like it becomes the focus on the world building. It's just kind of it's there. It's a cool aspect, but yeah, the plot just moves so quick that it just kind of drags you along, and then the music just kind of brings it all together. The animation and story are decent. They're not gonna make you think too deeply about anything, but it's definitely like a fun movie. It's streaming now on HBO Max. So again, I'm gonna start throwing about a whole bunch of different streaming services right now, but Yeah, before that, I think it was available to rent on Amazon or any of the other streaming services. But it is, yeah, again, very fun, very high paced. The speed of the tempo of the movie really never slows down, or it slows down only for moments. Other than those moments, it kind of just keeps on like chugging through.
Just supplementary information. It is directed by Hiroyuki Imaishi, who used to work for an Evangelion. He was an animator.
Oh, was he really?
Gainax.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I think so. I mean, just double check my sources.
There's a lot of so I don't know if you've seen the show Fire Force or Gurren Lagann.
No.
So those were, I guess, two popular animes that I have on my to watch list but haven't gotten to around yet. Fire Force, it actually has a very similar plot, which is why I mentioned it. So a lot of people kind of made that connection. They're like, oh, this is like the exact same plot, only in a movie form by Studio Trigger. But the Gurren Lagann fans were like, hey, that main character is like the same main character as in Gurren Lagann. So it's kind of interesting. A lot of people who keep up with the anime scene, they were like making these connections to this movie.
Yeah, I mean, not to get too nerdy here, but that movie, anime movie called Summer Wars, that was
that.
The whole plot is the same thing as the original Digimon movie series that came out when we were kids too. And it was actually
is it really
by the same person? Yeah.
Oh yeah, huh? It is kind of.
Yeah, I mean, not to
yeah
spoil the plot, but yeah, it's the same thing. and the animation is very, very similar because I think it was created by the same person or the same team. So I enjoyed both. I was like, wait, I've seen this before. So I mean, it happens, you know. It's kind of hard to truly create a very original series these days. So anything else you want to share about Premiere? I will definitely be watching this. I'm just looking at the pictures here online, and it sounds pretty the animation looks pretty amazing.
It is really crazy. Just be ready to like just kind of continue going, what?
I mean, I like Satoshi Kon movies. So like Paprika, you know them?
I haven't seen Paprika.
Oh yeah, but I mean that's that's pretty crazy. So I'm pretty sure I can keep up.
So with that said, we're gonna go to a quick commercial break.
Right, cool.
So we're back from the commercial break.
So I guess moving on to my second recommendation, just to let our listeners know, everything else will be manga. So if you don't read manga, please bear with me here. I've been just kind of in that vibe these days. So the first one I'll probably recommend is called Chainsaw Man, and this has been really all the hype now that there's a new anime coming out. So some people might be tired of listening to people talk about Chainsaw Man. So if that's the case, maybe skip 10 minutes if you want. I'm fine with that.
We'll put a timestamp. We'll mention a timestamp in here somewhere. But I actually have been. It's been sure. I haven't watched anybody talk about Chainsaw Man, but it has shown up on my like watch later list in several occasions, like different people talking about it or the trailer for it. So I'm interested to hear what you have to say about it.
Yeah, so it's kind of hard to share the plot without really disclosing too much, but it definitely is a dark fantasy. Something that I'm not really usually a fan of, but once I started reading it, it's just the artwork of the author Tatsuki Fujimoto, pretty amazing. The plot, I mean, it's a typical shonen jump manga, so it has the usual quirks like a setting where it's like kids in a school setting, a lot of violence, a lot of kind of, I don't know how to phrase it, or younger kids coming to that age or experiencing sexuality, right? That type of thing, which I wasn't too much a fan of within the series, but it does help with the character building, so I did understand why that was there. I guess this is why I would recommend reading it as a manga. first, and maybe checking out the anime. Fujimoto is able to story tell by using frames without a lot of words, and there's a lot of emotions that kind of as a reader you're kind of experiencing, especially once you kind of get into the middle of the series where you're emotionally invested in certain characters. If you're actually reading the manga, I would definitely recommend the 8th book, without disclosing too much. There's a new enemy that shows up, and the way he builds this character up, the powers and the influence this character has. I don't know. I mean, I'm not really a big manga reader, so maybe it's as a true manga reader, it might be something that maybe our listeners may have seen something better than that. But I actually had to, once I read through those pages, I went back and reread them.
Yeah.
Because I mean, it really had an impact on me. And they just finished the first part of the series, so it's just 11 volumes out. And then I think they just announced that there's a part 2 coming. But before part 2 comes out, there's an anime series coming out, I think later next year. Don't quote me on dates. But because from this Chainsaw Man manga series, I've become a fan of the author, Fujimoto, so I've started reading some of his other works, and he has a short story, or Fujimoto has a short story called Look Back, which is a look into a young, I think it's a high school, or maybe middle school kid that is striving to become a manga artist.
Manga?
What is it called?
Mangaka?
Mangaka? I don't know what's the
I think that's what the
terminology
term is.
Yeah, but that also, I mean, there's not too much words in there. It's a lot of the stories told through the frames. I just fell in love with his work. So
book 8, you do have to get up to book 8 in order to appreciate book 8, right?
Yeah.
Don't just go straight into book 8.
No, don't just go through it.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, with that said, some of the artwork, and I know people have preferences when it comes to the character design or how people draw humans.
That's why people don't like One Piece, right?
Yeah, I think that kind of got me away from One Piece too. And Code Geass, I just can't get into the big eyes.
Really? Code Geass?
I haven't watched Code Geass yet.
Code Geass was good, but I feel like the plot has been done so many times since then. Just in like Western media as well. So Western media, Japanese media, it's just been done many times. So I kind of look back at it and it's like, it's all right. But when I watched it, I was like, this is great.
Okay.
But sorry, go on. So that character that you showed, he had like what looked like a mustache on him.
No.
That's just like shadows of his nose?
Yeah, he's a young kid.
Oh, okay.
It's very typical shonen jump series that's been coming out, like Kimetsu no Yaiba.
Oh, Demon Slayer
and Jujutsu Kaisen.
Oh yeah,
because it is dark fantasy. So I mean, you kind of know just from the cover, the main character turns into like this guy called Chainsaw Man, where he fights people becoming a chainsaw.
What?
So there's a lot of gore in it. So if you're not into that, maybe I might not recommend it. But if you can get over that, I think the storytelling is pretty awesome.
Where does it stand in? Where does it stand in compared to Gantz?
Gantz is all just violence, right?
Yeah.
Granted, I didn't read the manga. I just saw the. Actually, no, wait. I've already seen the TV show, the movies for Gantz. Not even the anime, so I'm not sure if I'm the right person to be speaking here, but that's, I feel like, is just violence. Like teenage. It's like, I feel like it was made for teenagers. That's why I feel like I wasn't so into it when I watched the movies. You know, it's like playing action games. You know, it's all action and no plot. At least TV games back then. These days it's a little bit different, right? Whereas Chainsaw Man, I think there's pretty good character development. Depending on who you are, I think you'll be emotionally invested in certain characters that show up in the story. Obviously, the main character is a Jump series, so it's like he's not happy-go-lucky. He's a pretty dark kid, but he's like, I'll just do it, kind of like I'll face any challenges type of dude. similar to how Luffy from One Piece is like, I'll just, I'll take on any challenge like that. And there's another character, a side character that's like, who's Naruto's
Sasuke?
Sasuke. Yeah, there's a character that's very similar to Sasuke, like a dark, cold-hearted, like wolf, lone wolf type of guy in there. Yeah, so I mean, there's a lot of tropes in there, but within those tropes, I think there's some good storytelling, and for me, the artwork was fantastic. So I kept on reading it, and then I'm glad I read it.
But anyway, that was Chainsaw Man, right?
That was Chainsaw Man.
Anything else on Chainsaw Man?
No, I spoke enough.
Okay. So my next recommendation kind of daisy chain off of my previous recommendation, which is Premiere. And the next recommendation I'm going to give to you is Star Wars Visions. And what Star Wars Visions is essentially an anthology. It's not actually like a series where each episode is like tailored to the next. It's like an anthology. So it's a combination of different studios or different anime studios takes on if some of the themes from Star Wars were more or less thought up by these different studios, or if they brought Star Wars to Japan to kind of create different stories for Star Wars, similar to what they did with, I think, Marvel. They did like an X-Men series a while back.
They're kind of doing that, right? What If?
So yeah, What If I think is a play actually off of the current Marvel multiverse which exists. So they take kind of like bits and pieces from those all of those stories. Star Wars Visions doesn't have any previous media to take on from. It's, for example, one of the episodes is like a 17. They're all really short, anywhere from like 8 minutes to half an hour. But one of the episodes that I saw recently, I haven't finished all of them, is
Wait, 8 minutes to half an hour?
Yeah, so it depends on what the studio wants, like the story the studio wants to do.
Oh, wow.
So one of the studios is Studio Trigger. So they did their own episode. They did their own like take on a Star Wars plot line. Not gonna go into too much detail with it, but it does actually. It's kind of interesting because it does bring kind of a lot of themes that are in shonen and Japanese manga and anime into like the Star Wars universe, which is it is an interesting take. Granted, that one was very Star Wars-esque. It does range from like old samurai films, if they had like lightsabers and other like Jedi magic, to like actually being in the Star Wars universe and just kind of like a side story. So definitely worth a watch, because it is kind of like an interesting mind exercise on, like, we see Star Wars as like this space opera, right? Like this Western space opera, but I think it kind of tries to say how much of this is similar to kind of other Japanese media, like Seven Samurai, when they redid it in anime and like modernized it, or just like Samurai Champloo, but with lightsabers. What does that look like?
Anything samurai related?
No, I mean, like Darth Vader was inspired by samurai, right? Like the first Star Wars series was heavily influenced by, at least like the lightsaber parts, by like got samurai. What are like samurai that are like wandering?
Oh, samurai.
Kind of like that, yeah.
Like?
No, that's
what is Ronin? What is Kenshin?
Ronin.
Yeah. Ronin, yeah.
Yeah, so it's kind of, I mean, Darth Vader's helmet's like, his whole outfit's shaped after samurai armor.
Oh, I never knew that.
Yeah.
Oh, what about the mask?
Oh, it's shaped after a samurai. Like the whole helmet is shaped after samurai helmets.
Without the horns.
Yeah, without the horns. Yeah. But also, yeah, like the lightsaber fighting is all based off of kind of like samurai fighting, or the samurai, or like two-handed sword style. In the first series. Second series, they started going into a lot more acrobatics, but that first series was very like influenced by Japanese sword art.
So 4, 5, 6, the original.
Yes, the original series. Yeah.
So you mentioned that was a take on the Japanese shonen. So does it have those tropes like the school setting or tournament arc?
Oh, tournament arc? Not so much, because it's like I said, it's like a average 15-minute episode, and it's supposed to be a self-contained episode.
Okay.
So it introduces the idea. You do see kind of where that story would go and where it came from, but it's not going to do too much. It's just kind of like going to give you the idea. For example, I think it introduces like certain Japanese manga themes. Like one of the, not without going into much, like this part, one of the themes is like your birth doesn't predetermine who you are, kind of thing.
Okay. So would you recommend the entire series or just that specific episode?
The entire series. I think it's a really interesting take, because there are a lot of lighthearted ones as well as some more kind of like, I think there's a wide enough variety for you not to get bored. There's not one I don't recommend yet because I haven't taken a look at all of them.
So the third series that I'm going to introduce, again, will be a manga. It just came out in 2021, and there's only been 2 volumes that has come out so far. I don't even know if it's even published in paper. I just read it, the digital version. And to my knowledge, I don't think any publishers in the States have bought that IP yet. So I don't know if it's going to be released in the States or in English. So I'm just going to
tell me what the plot is.
State that here in case anyone's like, oh, I can't find it. But it's called, in Japanese, it's called Darwin Jihen. In English, it's Darwin's Incident. Darwin being a great, is he a scientist? Darwin?
He's a biologist, right?
That's right. Obviously, I don't know my history or my science, so I'm just going to call him a biologist, Charles Darwin, and his theories on evolution. It's a sci-fi, so I'm going back to what I like, sci-fi. And I think the plot or the story is very timely. There are some similarities to something you've seen before, so you may notice this as I explain it. But essentially, it's currently in current day, like even I think it's like the setting is 2021. Don't quote me on that, but the company creates a new species that is a mix of humans and a chimpanzee. This was all done in a lab, so there wasn't like actual, Yeah. Anyways, so they create this new species in the lab, and that lab gets raided by these new type of terrorists who are, so they're like the more violent version of the PETA, I can maybe say, without really offending anybody. Where to the point where they actually attack people using bombs and things like that to fight for what they believe in. So they raid this lab and they find out that there's this new species that has been created. And so these 2 scientists, they take on the responsibility of raising this new species. I forgot to write down the plot, so I'm blanking out on the name of the main character here.
You don't need the name of the main character. Is he? Are they going to? Is it like the brains of a human, but the physicalness of a?
So yeah, the main character is actually smarter than regular humans. But to raise him, it's a he. To raise him, the 2 adults, or the parents, they put him in regular school. For obvious reasons, things don't work out, so they take him out and homeschools him. But then the main character reaches the age of high school, and they try to put him back into school in regular human society so that he can adjust, because they're concerned as a parent, one day they'll pass away and they want their son, essentially, they see him as a son, to be able to survive on his own. So the whole series is, I think, as any good sci-fi is, it's a take on what makes us human and what qualifies as human. And then it also talks about how, there's only been 2 volumes, so they haven't really gone into this yet, but they're starting
is it still going, or is it finished?
Oh yeah, it just started.
Oh,
so
okay.
It's going on. Yeah. So I don't know if it'll ever finish. Hopefully it does, after it gains more popularity. But so they talk about how the main character actually doesn't have any rights because he's not really human. So we're going, and Vol.1 2 kind of goes into the parents fighting to change regulations or the laws in the United States to see if he can actually get a right as the new species that he is.
Is it a situation where he's distinctively like not able to fit in because of his physical attributes?
Yeah, he looks like a chimpanzee.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it is a manga, so they write it in a way that's like kind of like charactery, kind of cute a little bit.
But it's like he looks more. It's more kind of like Planet of the Apes kind of situation versus like a.
Yeah. So I know you're gonna bring it up. It does overlap a lot with Planet of the Apes, but instead of apes becoming smarter, or in some cases smarter than humans, it's just a new species that's being thrown into this world of humans. You know, and then because of his special nature, a lot of people are invested in this character. Some people want out of human society. Some people, like that terrorist group, are looking to use him as a martyr to get the message out about protecting animals. So it's still the story is still in development, so I don't know where it's going to go. But plot-wise, it's something that is of interest to me. And I think you also like sci-fi, so I thought you might take interest. It's just that, again, I don't think it's been translated in English yet, and I don't know if it will ever be.
I'll try to look up some subs online. But I think, that...
And then the last thing, it does take place in the US, and then the Bay Area pops up. So there's scenes in there like, oh, hey, it's the Bay Area.
Yeah.
So I thought you might find that, I don't know, interesting too. And the artwork is actually... it's not, to be honest, I don't think it's very original, but the drawing is amazing. It's very realistic. So that kind of helps move the story forward. With Chainsaw Man, I think I was really somewhat invested in each frame per frame because I love the artwork. Whereas this one, it's visually very clean. So it kind of helps you kind of read through the story without being distracted.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, that is an interesting thought exercise to see kind of what would happen if by accident they manufactured like a humanoid animal, because I think the US media is very much like it'll turn into another Planet of the Apes situation.
Yeah, and so far there's only one of them, one of the species, so I don't think humans are kind of scared of him taking over the world. It's just that it's a new species, it's not really human. So people are, at this stage in the story plotline, or the story plot, they just don't know how to react to it. So some people are skeptical, some people are supportive. So yeah. Well, hopefully we'll touch on a lot more introspective things as they develop the story.
So yeah, those are our recommendations for things to watch. Keishi, I hope you get a chance to watch all of the things that I recommended, and I hope you enjoy it. Let me know what you think.
So I guess before we kind of close this up, I'm just going to quickly go over what we recommended. So for me, in the manga media, I guess, it was Chainsaw Man, Darwin's Incident, and then for anime, it was Ourtakes.
And for me, I recommended one movie, which is Promare, now on HBO Max. And I recommended Ted Lasso on Apple TV Plus and Star Wars Visions on Disney Plus.
All right, sounds good.
So watch it.
Let us know your thoughts again through our usual social media platforms, or press, Instagram, email.
Ooh, maybe we'll put up a poll. See you soon.
Bye. Peace.